Good evening. It is Friday, March 3rd, 2023, and we are here with 45 RPNs. We're back. Ernie Enns and Nigel Bart here on a beautiful spring-like Friday in Carmen, Manitoba at GPAC, Golden Prairie Arts Council, Treaty 1 territory, and we are talking music. And I'm going to throw a little extra in there: music, collecting, and art, and whatever in between. So thank you to our listening audience for tuning in. Today, it's been a while since Ernie and I have sat down and chatted.
Yeah.
And it's almost been a month, I'd say, or even more.
I
But
was more like 2 months.
2 months, oh my gosh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So it's been too long. And we're just looking up at a painting I did in the GPAC, a mural inside, and I call it the Wall of Heroes. And we're putting up all our, not only musical heroes, but just heroes of life. I got Gord Downey up there and some other heroes, and we're just talking, focusing our thoughts here on this Friday evening, and we're gonna try to spend about 45 minutes as usual, and Ernie just gifted me another little 45, and this one is a Def Leppard 45, one of my favorite albums, artists, I should say, and this has some really rare songs on it that I've not heard before. So thank you, Ernie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So you mentioned, I'm just going to start the conversation by asking a question. You were telling a story prior about like meeting musicians and meeting people and forming relationships with them, and just like you were saying to me that you met a musician friend, and how sometimes it's intimidating to, even to someone you might aspire to. Like sometimes I've met people who I really aspired to, like an artist or something, and I was too shy to even go close to them and ask them, like, how did you paint that, or how did you do that with your art, or how did you get to this level? And you were telling me about this musician friend and how hard it was, but then now you're playing with the musician guy that and it's like sometimes it's interesting, how a little bit of sometimes we have to step out of our safe zones and just, and reach out sometimes to other, because I couldn't have imagined meeting you, for example, and having this wonderful, relationship here where we talk about all of the most interesting things on the world, to us, like you being one of the most amazing, knowledgeable musicians, and I just like art, so, and I like music too. But so what are we going to tackle today, Ernie?
I don't know. I kind of like the topic of heroes, like we were talking about your Wall of Heroes there, and yeah, you're right. Like people that inspire us, I think we elevate them in our mind, like to a point where we're intimidated by their presence, and that's exactly how it was with this guy. When I first met him, it was like this guy, and in my music room, you've been in my music room, but
Yeah.
but it wasn't quite done at that time, and now when you walk into my music room down the hall where I have the 7-foot Strat on the wall, well, guess whose picture I have up there? Bob Marginette.
Nice.
His picture
nice.
is hanging there, and the reason for that is that story I just told you of how I met this guy and how inspirational he's been.
Yeah.
He's just such a great guitar player.
Yeah.
And for him to play with me is just so humbling. It's like, why would he bother, that sort of thing, but he does. Plays with me all kinds of gigs all the time, and anytime I need a guitar player, I call him up, and he says, I'll check my calendar every time, and then he either say, yep, I'm good to go, or he'll say, oh, I'm already playing that day, sorry.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when we do these gigs, you know, a lot of times I do original stuff, but he doesn't know this stuff. So I go to his place, into his music room, and we sit there and play. And it's just awesome, you know, to be able to be in his presence, and then also for him to play on my songs, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, the Wall of Heroes it's a good idea to do that. And yeah,
that's a challenge to our audience, our listening audience today, is to reach into your cache of memories. And even if you don't have any heroes right at the moment, just go back to when you're 12 years old or when you're 16. And 1 second, I'm just gonna pause that.
okay.
Sorry for that little interruption. Actually, my hero just walked in the room, and this is cheesy, and he's not in the room right now, but that's my son. 16-year-old kid came in the room, and I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks now, but it's nice to have my hero in the house. So anyway,
Nice.
we're you know, I was thinking, you know, we got our material, our source material here, but we'll get to that in a moment. Like, I was thinking while you were talking about this, Ernie, like the idea that I ran with was, and I'm just gonna draw on just with marker while we talk because it helps me think sometimes. And but I was thinking, like, sometimes in life you take chances, you go on a trip that you don't really know if it'll turn out, and you just think, like, you know, sometimes it's those moments when we're tired and we'd rather not, or, you know, someone says, why don't you come to this concert, or no, we'd rather not, we have something else to do, or why don't you meet this guy, he's a great guy, Ernie Enns, why don't you come down and meet him. Someone says that to you and you say, I don't know, I'd rather not. He probably doesn't even know me or anything, but
He's just a carpenter.
it's just a carpenter. But in the end, it's growing up. This is what life is to me, as philosophically, is like don't ever forget to smell those roses. Go take a walk to the local record shop, or like go across the street and see what's, you know, don't ever be shy of saying hello to your neighbor. You know, it's, to me, it's all about you know, if you have the opportunity to traveling is a great learning experience, and you know, meeting people, in my mind, is it's not an easy art form, but it is an art form, and it's, you sometimes every person you meet is like going to a different city, I find, and you learn, or a different town or wherever, and you learn so much from them. So it's, you know, don't lose your curiosity, folks. You know, in this time in this epic time we're living in, with all these changes and everything, new customs, we still have to remember to embrace our curiosity and learn about people, you know, learn about other places, and learn about other styles of music, ways of doing things.
No, we live in a time where it's endless possibilities, right? There's just so much opportunity. Like, for instance, you were talking about meeting people and all that stuff. So my wife just got her ticket to go to Japan. She got it this week. She got her ticket. They're leaving, and so she's going with. So it's going to be her and our oldest daughter, Carly, and Carly's son, Ashton.
Ooh.
And he turns 20 during this trip that while they're going to be in Japan. He's going to turn 20 years old, because that's his birthday gift from his mom and his grandma are giving him a gift to take him to Japan for his birthday. So
how amazing,
isn't it? And so I think the three of them are going to have just the best time of their lives, you know. And so, but we live in a time of just endless opportunities. Like, you can just order a ticket and you could fly to Japan, you know.
Yeah,
very cool. Very cool, yeah. So,
yeah,
I'm happy for them, yeah.
That's so cool. Sometimes I think of what my mind goes to is often, you know, being the internet is a great way to travel a bit, you could say, but I often find there's limitations to theoretical knowledge. So like books and stuff are great to learn from a basis, but experience is like, until you like pick up a guitar, for example, you can read, you can listen to music all you like and just say like what you like, but until you pick up that guitar and play a bit and try to mesh with other musicians, you never know what you're made of. Like I find that sometimes the experience of life, like, is sort of how do you say it? It's undervalued comparatively to theoretical knowledge. So there's a lot of sort of like in our world today, there's a lot of emphasis put on getting a degree or get learning school right sort of guitar practice or music or anything, and we forget that in life, like sometimes the experience of even just something simple as like picking up a marker, like what I'm doing, and drawing with it can teach you something that you would never know about yourself unless you did it, So I know we're getting philosophical right off the bat, but it's just sort of the kind of thing I like to think about sometimes and ponder, like, why am I more of an artist than a musician? Or like I do both, but or why am I not a carpenter when like what differentiates that in life? Like what leads that path,
It's interesting. Yeah.
And how do you get famous is the bottom line, Ernie.
I don't know. That's kind of pretty low on my priority list.
That's good. But you are to many people, Ernie. People know you around.
But that's a good point.
Now with these Ernie Ends episodes, you're all over the world. Like you seriously are. People know you in Tokyo, I'm sure. So.
But it's interesting. Like just talking about how do you get to be passionate about music? How do you get to be passionate about art? And I don't know. It's for me. It was there. Like when I was young, I didn't have really a whole lot to do with music, other than I started to play guitar at an early age, which would have been probably about 1965 or something like that. I was playing guitar, and I played in church. Me and my sister, we'd play instrumentals in church, and that's basically any famous musician will tell you the exact same thing. They started at a young age, and they played in church, and they're all the same. Everybody's the same, and that's how it was for us. And but what was a real game changer was when I was listening to, because we didn't have a whole lot of media back then. I mean, you had television, and I did see the original Ed Sullivan with the Beatles. I did see that, but that didn't do a whole lot for me, other than it was pretty cool. Even at the time, I thought, oh, these guys are good musicians, wow. And but after that, when I got a little older, and it probably had more to do with age than anything else, but then I got to be like 12, 13 years old, 14 years old in there somewhere, and the music on the radio caught me, and because of that, I remained a music lover ever since. Nothing has changed since I was a young boy. For the type of music I like, for the songs I listen to, I still listen to all that same stuff. But what exactly made me love those songs? How do you explain that? How would you explain that I loved the song Mendocino by Sir Douglas Quintet? To this day, it's still one of my favorite songs, and it came out in like '69 or whatever. And
I was thinking it's a bit of nurture and nature. That theory of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. So like, sometimes I think like, sometimes there's a random, like I picked up Def Leppard when I was 13, same age.
Yeah.
And it was a random pick. I just said, that album cover looks good. it was hysteria. And the moment I heard it, it was like I listened to it maybe 10, 15, 100 times.
Yeah.
And then suddenly
Oh, yeah.
I was like hooked. And that's all I could
But how do
dream
you
of.
know?
But it's like a nurture nature thing. Like sometimes I think it's like your genetics, number one, because you know you have that in your genetics. But there's also this accidental serendipity around us.
Yeah. And
I think
why?
sometimes
Yeah.
things just come our way, and you either have a choice to deny it out of fear, or like, you know, I could have said, "No way, Def Leppard." Like, I could have been afraid of it and just like, I'm not gonna waste my time or my money spending on. But something in me, the Nigel that made me who I am, purchased that first album, and it turned out to there's a tape, and it turned out to be like I had to buy 10 of those tapes because they kept stretching out on me. But you know,
And
like
that's
yeah,
definitely a good thing, because
Yeah.
enjoying music, it is a real joy, you know, to have music,
yeah. And
to have that passion for music.
another example, like we're just spinning on this part, like a 45 here, we're spinning. But there was a nice person who came in the gallery here, and her and her daughter, and you know, we started talking, and she was gracious enough to give me some time of hers. And you know, before you knew it, I liked her story a lot, and she makes these beautiful garments and stuff out of like alpaca wool and silk and stuff. Like she makes all these things. So I bought this nice yellow scarf because yellow is my color. I just love yellow.
Oh, really?
And I bought this nice silk scarf, and for every Friday I wear this. And she comes now. She's a wonderful friend of mine.
Yeah.
She comes in. We do drop-ins, and like with her kids, and they're getting to know me. And from her, the community's getting to know me, and they're homeschoolers, and it's just wonderful. Like, and I find that if I didn't take the time to be with her for like whatever, we spent a good hour the first time we were talking. But and what made me do that, I don't know, but now I'm an avid like fan of this Hundredfold Farms, which is amazing. Like these guys are cool. And but you know, other people might just have breezed by it, you know.
Yeah.
And some things, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like what makes us do those things is so fascinating.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like in your shirt there, Bob Seger, let's turn to that.
Oh,
Bobby.
but it's interesting point you would make of how little things can affect your destiny, or your life to come, you know, or what path you're going to choose. And sometimes it's just a moment in time that'll do that. And how do you explain that? And if you had done this instead of that, would your life have gone totally different? And so it's very interesting. And so in other words, I guess it gets down to that every moment of your life is important.
This butterfly effect.
Yeah.
You hear that? You remember Ray Bradbury butterfly effect story?
No.
Like if you step on a insect, basically it'll change the course of history. It's a little bit over the top, but it's,
Right.
you can think of that like that, you know, evolution, all that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of this idea of like, but you're right, like every little thing changes our destiny. But the other thing I was thinking of is like what would change it in a bad way. I always think when people lose their cool, like when they go up, like their moods go out of whack.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I know a lot of situations where people turn to alcohol or drugs just because they're stressed and they don't want to face another day of like the same things. Sort of like, and they get like, you know, I almost think that if people could regulate their emotions just to be on the same sort of relaxed key every moment of it, every day, and not like worry, we'd all find our destiny, you know. But sometimes people get so stressed out in this life, they turn to bad things, you know.
And and a lot of it has to do with you know, success or money or whatever that you want to.
Yeah.
You know,
Most things do boil down to
it
that.
all boils down to that, and I always say that, you know, that everything like that, everything that that people do, or lots of people do, is they focus their lives on success, and success to most people is in dollars and cents, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the world we live in, and that sort of thing. So in other words, everything you do, you're you're going for money, and the reason you want money is so you can have things and buy things, and the reason you have things and buy things is for the sole purpose of satisfaction, and that all boils down to one thing: happiness. Everybody wants happiness, and so
Yeah.
I think to myself, why don't you just cut to the chase, forget all that
Thank
stuff,
you. Thank
cut
you,
to
Ernie.
the
Yeah,
chase,
yeah, yeah.
right, and just be happy.
Yes.
And you can skip
this
all
is beautiful.
this.
You're right. You're right.
And
sometimes
that's the way I think about it. I mean, you gotta have a job. You gotta make money because you have no choice, because you need money to keep the economy going.
may as well accept it, right?
So you can eat. Well, you have to eat, and you have bills to pay, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to work.
Yeah, and work is not that bad actually.
No,
I
work
enjoy
is not that bad, and so you need the dollars. You have to have the dollars coming in because you
Yeah.
need it to
Yeah.
eat and all that stuff.
Right.
But
because that's how it works. That's how the world works.
yeah, that's what makes it.
And many people don't realize that, but the world, you have to somehow find something you like or you gravitate to, and people like make it. Honestly, like young people have a hard time with the work thing. A lot of young people struggle with which direction should I go. Well, sometimes it just takes diving in and trying like a job at the Chicken Chef or somewhere, just like to start off the motion, and then you learn, oh, I don't like that so much, so you try another avenue.
Yeah, my sister, one of her sayings is, this is my sister Kathleen, and one of her sayings is, bloom where you are planted.
Nice.
And I always think, it's a good idea. Wherever you happen to be in life, I mean, you make best of it, but don't just make the best of it. Make it good.
Yes.
Make it good, and make it an extension of yourself and all that. And I think there'd be a lot happier people if
they didn't chase things, because chasing is different than like finding, like hunting. For example, like I've chased things that, like, I've had sort of grandiose dreams. Like one day I would dream, oh, I'm gonna be like a big engineer or a doctor, and then suddenly I want to be the biggest artist on the planet. So like, but look around, like what I think is looking around, and like you said, it homegrown, like sometimes the best answers are right in front of you, sort of, it's sort of like in your environment, like you're close by, things come your way for a reason. But and this is the serendipity of life. Like a lot of people like get shocked over coincidence or serendipity and think, oh, I don't believe in anything like that. But actually, coincidence and serendipity are just part of the magic of life. So it's like when something comes your way, the newspaper opens in front of you, and you see something that you relate to well, and it's just something that is about life. And sometimes I've found my best jobs or my best interests just by flipping open a book and suddenly or listening to the radio. And I was thinking about we're going really philosophical. Let's have a sip of coffee and gather our thoughts here. But
good coffee.
I'm gonna open my book, Ernie. I'm talking too much, but I'm gonna see what we got for artists here. I pulled up Willem de Kooning, and now Willem, again, like I was fortunate enough to go to university to study artists and to art and everything, study like that was, I'm very grateful to have that education, schooling. But again, it's only like 20% of who I am, but I look up Willem de Kooning on the internet because I like his art, simply. I'm not going to read much about him, but I really liked his art when I was growing up. One of my heroes. And he's got a really wild style, this one. It's very it's almost like he's very expressive with his art, and to someone else it might just seem sort of like not like, this is an image of Marilyn Monroe I'm looking at in my book, but he was born in the end of the beginning of the 20th century, and this painting was done in 1954. And you know, I'm just going to carry on a little bit longer here. When I was growing up, I found that I could in a classroom I'd draw posters and just like doodle and things like that, and like for competitions, and I'd win them and stuff, but something led me elsewhere, and I chased a lot of different dreams throughout my life, and that's the beauty of life. But eventually, like, I landed back at the art, and I find I'm so happy with it, but it's not like everyone follows the same journey. But sometimes you like to say cut to the chase, but I think the beauty of life too is like going on that journey and discovery who you are.
Yeah.
Like that's the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. I always think too that it shouldn't just be a destination. It should be a journey involved.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And so, but no, when I say cut to the chase, it would be the happiness thing.
Yeah.
Forget all that other stuff and be happy.
But you got to be realistic too, because life is rarely happy for a lot of people. Like,
yes,
like it's suffering, eh? Like it's like sometimes you just get locked into something you don't want, and it hurts.
Yeah, and for and when it comes to things like when you have children that are sick or something, I mean that really must be hard. Yeah. I've never had to experience that, but.
Or like debt, or like the financial debt, and most
debt.
Of the world's in so much debt too, because there's so much materialism being preached, and like there's you got to admit, like the cost of everything.
So so to cut through all that and be happy, it's harder than it's harder said. I mean, easier said than done, I should say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I often even get sort of seduced into my mind where I think of like what would I like to do in life, even at my age. I'm 48 years old, and I still have this weird fantasy of like being like some kind of like famous musician or famous artist. And it's unusual how our minds want something when we don't need it. Like, I don't need anything in my life, Ernie, and yet my mind keeps telling. It's like it's almost like sort of the 7 deadly sins sort of thing, like where like humans have these desires, and sometimes they can just go nuts on us at any moment if we don't have the training. Like you bring in church all the time, but I'm only going to say this because we're not going to talk religion, but for one thing, if people don't have any religion training, they often go nuts with all their desires and think it's okay. But like, at least you have the backing, because many people don't this day and age. They just abandon the church.
But most of the world has done that, because when it comes to church going, there's very few people that go to church.
No one anymore, hardly. Like, we're losing that. So
yeah.
And many people say it's the bad thing, but I don't. Like, I think there's many rules, social and scientifically.
I wouldn't call it rules. I'd call it structure. Like,
there you go, structure. Or guidelines.
The guidelines and structure is very important. And for me, like, church is. Yeah, we don't want to get into religion, but
no, but you nailed it. It's like social contract. Yeah. Have you heard of social contract? Like, many people don't realize that, like, the world's works like a hive of bees or insects. Like, and if someone in that group doesn't know those rules, and suddenly, like, can cause a lot of damage in that hive. Like, and that happens a lot in the United States now. Like there's in Canada, but like where kids are not trained how to behave in certain areas of life, and even adults, and they go in violent ways about themselves, and do things that are not cool. But Anyways,
Yeah.
I think like as an artist, I mean, it's sort of where my mind always goes. Like, so I know I'm kind of dominating this conversation, which I apologize for, Ernie.
No, it's
But,
all good.
but you know, my mind as an artist is constantly almost like raging about all these issues where I find it hard just to sit and enjoy a good album or good book sometimes without letting the thoughts
Yeah.
ravage me, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's yeah. On that same note, for on the side of the musician, just to sit down and listen to a good album is just so nice. It's so really good. And lately, I've been listening to Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And and I've been listening to them since the early '70s, like Chicago, but I've never appreciated them like I do now. I found a video on YouTube. It was, I think they were at the Greek Theater in 2003. I think at the Greek Theater or something. Anyway, it was a live concert. Just amazing, and a whole new appreciation for Chicago music now.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So, but
Interesting you say that because
yeah.
I'm a Chicago fan, but on another level, I was thinking about musicians and artists and the desires they have to be successful. And I think there's a certain age or something when maybe it's just universal or maybe not universal. I don't know. But there was this thought occurred to me that I was talking to a gallery, like an art gallery, big art gallery in the city. I went, and that's kind of like, I went in there and I was talking to the head honcho. He's a gentleman, like older than us. So, but he was, very generous with his time and his knowledge, even though he had like everything in the world, money, wealth, success. He'd seen probably the best artists in the world. And so this gallery, which is quite an upper end gallery in Winnipeg. And I spoke to him and I asked him like, or maybe he just offered this. He said, what did he say now? He said, sometimes as an artist, whether you're a musician or a visual artist, in order to achieve your goals, or whether you're a carpenter or whatever, it's about finding something you like. Like this is where you find musicians you like, and not just listening to your own music or looking at your own art and promoting your own art or listening to your own music. I found that really interesting because there's moments in life where I get really sort of cloistered on my own world, and sometimes looking out about you and seeing like maybe you have an answer, or like look on the art on the walls, or turn to music from the outside. Sometimes that outer perimeter has answers for you instead of focusing on your own sort of music or turmoil. Because
well, I would call that inspiration. Inspiration is wow. I mean, it does so much for anybody, like to be inspired by something and then it give you a whole new, fresh breath or whatever whatever it is that you do, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
so it's always good, to see what everybody else is doing and that sort of thing, and you don't have to necessarily like everything, which we don't. As humans, we like what we like for whatever reason, and so.
And I had like a musician upbringing where like in classes I'd be taking music and they'd tell you like just listen to as much music as you can. Other people they say just like, if you want to be good at playing, just listen to as much music as you can, like different kinds of music too, and test it. That's like jazz was a big thing when I was growing up, and they were telling me just listen to these musicians, Nigel, and I'd be like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
You wanted to listen to Def Leppard.
And then I'm this age, and I'm like, well, not so much even that. Yeah, you're right, but
Yeah.
but like,
Oh yeah, me too. Like I grew up on old country music. That's what
yeah,
my parents all played. Like my parents and or my siblings and then my parents, everybody in our family played.
yeah.
So we're all musicians. But the song of the times was old country.
Yeah,
you know,
which
that-
is great. That stuff is.
Yeah.
so
Now when I look back at it, I appreciate it more now than I did then because at that time it was kind of like old people music, you know. And
Yeah,
I wanted to
yeah.
I wanted to listen to, well, I guess when I was young, I didn't really think a whole lot about music. But when I got into my teenage years, then I wanted to listen to the Beatles and
Yeah.
all these other groups, these one-hit wonders or whatever, and yeah. But now, when I look back at that old country music, I love it.
Oh, I know.
Like right now, some of the last few songs that I've learned now, I learned an old Hank Snow song from 1952.
Nice.
And I'm going to be playing it at Manitou.
Oh, nice.
On the 11th. There's a show coming up there. Yeah.
So anyone listening wanting to see Ernie play live?
Yeah. So I got a steel guitar lined up to join me that day,
Nice.
and so that's kind of why I'm finding some of this old music because steel guitar works so good in old songs, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but that's what we grew up with is old country music, and at the time I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then of course in the 70s I went through a phase where bluegrass music, well, that's hillbilly stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, nothing to do with that. And then when all of a sudden in the middle 80s,
Sorry.
all of a sudden in the
Distracted.
middle 80s, I started to appreciate all these bluegrass bands and all that, and all of a sudden here I was a fan of bluegrass. You know,
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
So as your musical taste changes, I guess over the years, or you mature as a musician, I guess that's
Yeah,
what happens. And so I love all that stuff.
Which is awesome.
I love bluegrass. I write bluegrass music songs. I write country songs, and I've never really figured out how to write rock songs. You know, That's something I've never. I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure why to write a rock song, but country's fairly easy to write.
Yeah. And you do gospel too.
Yeah, and gospel. I
And,
write a lot
there's
of
so much
gospel music, and
crossover.
with the gospel stuff, I get to actually perform it because I just go in church and play, and play my own stuff.
That's right.
And so,
Well, you want to know one of the best experiences that I ever had? Like, I was similar to you, where I was in the choir as a church, and not only that, my success as a musician, as an artist, I was in band when I was starting, like, in school, and so, like, one of the most geekiest instruments I picked up was the clarinet. Turned out that instrument was probably the longevity of my success as a musician artist. Like, it just opened doors. So, like, when kids are struggling with, like, I don't want to play the clarinet, or I don't want to play the flute, mom or dad, just like, you kids out there, you got to realize that it could turn into one of the best blessings in your life, and never be ashamed of who you are, showing your true colors. Like,
bloom where you're planted.
That's right. It's like marching to your own drum. This is another thought I had in my head while we were just prepping for this talk. And sometimes you don't know I prep, but I prep. And it's not just totally random either. But I was thinking about marching to our own drums, and the theme of today is that, and this all aligns with what I'm trying to say, is that if people just march their own drums a little bit more closely, like their own heartbeat, their own pace, their own rhythm, I think there'd be a lot more peace in the world. Like there's so often people are trying to fix the world, fix other people, get into others' business, and I almost think that at times in life, we need to just sit with ourselves and a friend or something, maybe, and some music, like good Neil Young or like Chet Baker, or something good, like, to listen to. Some good, and just like sip a glass of water and pretend it's wine and just enjoy that moment and not worry about what anyone else is thinking, and find your heartbeat. Because if you don't find your heartbeat in life, like every song I write, every rock song I write is based on my heartbeat. It's all inclusive. Like, it's like I hear that heartbeat inside me and I'm like, thoop, doo, 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 doo. And then I amplify it with guitars and bass and everything. And I just think if we pace ourselves to our heartbeats don't go like unless you're having a cardiac arrest. But and we don't ever want to get to that point.
No,
but
we don't
just follow
that.
your own heartbeat, man. And you remember, like, like whether you're a kid or a teenager or you're an adult, you're a senior, your heartbeat is really important. And I think sometimes we lose track of that. Like, if we try to run too fast, we often fall. And if someone puts pressure on us, like our boss puts pressure on us, or our dad puts pressure on us, or mom puts pressure, or our brother Ernie puts pressure on you, you just gotta know that you always gotta go your own pace and march your own drum. Because if you don't march your own drum in the end, but you still learn from others. But I think that marching to your own drum means don't ever get shaken by some pressures out there.
Yeah, I always think that just listen to your heart, because it won't lie to you. I mean, everybody knows right from wrong and this from that, and
but it's getting harder this day.
Your heart will tell you.
But our hearts will tell us. But it's getting harder and harder. There's so much weird peer pressure out there, and it's like everything you turn to, there's problems. Like, so like I think it's getting harder to decipher. Maybe for the old timers like us, like I think we have more of a backing and experience to know that. Yeah. Okay, maybe I won't go use some meth or like try some bad stuff out there. Yeah. So like if we didn't know that is too bad, the youngsters don't know that sometimes.
No.
There's my hero. It's coming in the room. But anyways, how much time we got here?
I don't know. Where are we sitting at?
Well, we're sitting at 42 minutes. So 3 minutes to wind her down.
3 minutes to wind her down.
Say something.
Well, you mentioned, just here a second ago, you mentioned, sitting down and listening to a record, whether it be whatever, and Neil Young you mentioned. Yeah. And so the song that I've been working on the last few days is This Old House by Neil Young. I don't know if you know that song or not, but I might play it at Manitou. I'm just kind of working on it right now, but what a great song if you listen to it. He's just such a good songwriter. Like he is definitely the Bob Dylan of Canada. And he talks about this house, and this old house of ours is built on dreams. And tomorrow morning, the man from the bank's going to come and take it all away. And that's what this song is about. But it's so beautiful. And the lead guitar in that, when he does a little guitar break in there, is so simple. And I never bothered to learn to play it. I just kind of, years ago, I remember I dabbled with it a bit. But now I kind of worked on the song, and I listened to that lead guitar in there, and it's just so beautiful. And I tried to do it, and it was like, this is way harder than I thought, And so I did kind of figure out how he does it. And it's beautiful, beautiful little piece. But it's This Old House by Neil Young. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, and it was recorded, like it's on the album of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I think the album is called American Dream or something like that. It's on there, and I don't know if he's got it on one of his own albums. I'm not sure. But it's just such a great song, and he's so good at visualizing. Like he can write so that you're visualizing everything that's going on there,
Yeah.
And so, but
and I don't particularly think I know that song. I probably do know it, but one thing I was gonna say in sort of in an opposite sort of way is that. Even though, like, I was thinking about that, when you said the story behind that song, I'm like, I got frightened right away about the idea of like, imagine if everything was, this is our house, this is our world, and it was just taken away the next day.
Yeah.
And the bankers came and the repo man took your car and you're just stuck. But the thing I took out of that was flipping it and saying that, imagine if you were on the periphery of the best day of your life and something was like, just like, and you're struggling. Like, imagine it's like digging a hole or something. Like, you feel like it's the hardest moment of your life. But just imagine, I'm going to leave us with this note. Imagine that all your suffering and all your worries are about to turn around and the best moments of your life are to come. So we're going to let you go there.
All right.
Good. I'm going to leave you on a hopeful edge. Right. So just don't ever forget that, and don't ever give up.
And keep on rocking.
Keep on rocking. Hold on. This is the moment where you stand at the elevator and you just wait for that elevator. Okay. Good night, folks.